Good morning.
Good morning, y'all.
How you doing, Mr. Ilan?
I am doing fine.
Good.
Trying to be busy a little bit with some art, and the rest of the day goes to medicine.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from a few of you, actually. Richard seems like he sent me an email basically saying that all week long he has doctor's appointments and they all fall right when I'm having class. So he won't be around this week, but he'll be around, but he won't be with us because he'll be doing other things.
What can we do?
Yeah, what can we do? Okay. I see that you've been checking out the Facebook page. I got,
I'm always checking your work. It's always interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, we're actually going to look at some of the stuff that I did over the weekend. And so we'll talk about that. And in fact, we're going to spend our whole day, talking about watercolor today. And I've got a couple of examples of different artists and how they generally, I selected figures as a subject. That way you could kind of compare people's approaches, with a particular subject. But you could really apply that to any, Hey, Bob.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Well, pretty good.
Odla.
My son had a birthday party for me yesterday, so it was good.
So are you 29 again?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Going on 3.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that was nice. I see Veronica is here. Hey, Veronica.
Good morning.
Yeah. And I saw, yeah?
My computer's running a little slow today.
Yeah, mine was doing some weird, quirky stuff in the beginning when I opened it up this morning. I don't know why. Maybe because it feels cold.
That, or I guess they're switching over to 5G or something.
I don't know. I know mine had to think about it for a long while before it opened up today. And that was a little disturbing because it was kind of like, sitting there. I could see the cursor, but I just had a black screen while it was kind of loading the system in there.
Yeah, it's a little whack. Oh, happy birthday, Bob, by the way. I heard that tail end.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bob is 29 again.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So here's to being 29 again.
Yeah.
Cheers. Speaking of cheers, my son brews beer as a hobby.
Uh-huh.
And there's a beer that's available. It's called Bourbon Barrel Ale.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's expensive, but it is good. It is very good. Well, he duplicated it.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did. I mean,
that would be hard to do, but okay. How did he duplicate it?
Well, he bought some oak strips and soaked them in bourbon.
Okay.
For I don't know, a couple of weeks, I guess, maybe longer, and then he took one of his recipes for ale. I don't know the exact one, but then while it was fermenting, he put the oak strip in the what are they called?
Into the kind of mash and stuff.
Yeah, right. And let it cook for a week or 2 weeks. And oh my goodness, it is so good.
Yeah. Actually, the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale is like one of my very favorite.
It is. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I was
but
just
you're-
introduced to it about
Yeah.
2 months ago.
Yeah, but you're right. It is a little bit pricey, because you only get like 4
Right. For about
bottles
12 bucks.
at about $12. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I could sit down and I could drink one of those beers, and it takes up my 3 beer limit. So it's like one is enough, and and they're very filling and they taste great.
Well, the only thing is that this is a little high in alcohol content. I think he said this is about 9%, which is pretty high for beer.
Actually, Kentucky Bourbon Barrel is, I think, 13.
Was it? Okay. Well, his is pretty close. He said it when he did the test on it for alcohol content. It's
You're frozen.
Oh, yeah. Something's happened. Internet. Oh,
Yeah.
Tom is here. Hello. And I don't know who KCHJ is.
That's Bernice. That's Bernice.
Bernice. Good morning, Bernice.
Good morning. How you doing?
Oh, good. Anytime I wake up, it's a good day.
That's right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Above ground.
Yes.
Yeah, I use that phrase very often, and lately I've been using it a lot, and I get the strangest looks from people sometimes. It's like, that's kind of a bit morbid. Okay, yeah, you're above ground, so yeah.
Disappeared for a few minutes, a few seconds.
Say what now?
You disappeared for a few seconds.
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, you kind of froze for a second. Yeah.
I did.
Yes.
It's saying that the internet is a little unstable today. So yeah,
Always.
yeah. So hopefully, yeah, you guys are freezing up. Yeah, you guys are freezing up for me too. So.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, babe.
Oh, Gil.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we won't have any of the shenanigans that went on Friday.
Oh,
So we hope. Yeah, because I'm using my home Wi-Fi, but I'm going to go ahead and turn on my hotspot, just kind of as a backup. So if I need to switch over, I can, make sure it's up and running. So, okay, it's there.
okay. Good morning, Armando.
Good morning, Armando.
Oh, I don't see him. Armando, are you with us? Yes. You're muted, Armando. We see the mouth moving, but we don't hear you, Armando.
Yeah, he's talking away, but you can't hear him.
I know. Well, the thing is, it says mute. No, unmute.
You have to turn up your volume, Armando.
Maybe.
He's looking.
Yeah.
I turn on his audio.
Yeah, something.
What about now?
Now we
Yeah,
hear you.
there you are.
Remember, I'm in the learning process in computer. In my
Okay.
time was no computer, no cell phone.
Armando, you're younger than the rest of us.
No, in my
I'm-
time we used to crank the car.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I remember those days.
Carl doesn't know about that, about cranking a car.
Yes, I do too.
No, I know about pushing a car.
Oh,
You don't know about cranking a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember having to push the Volkswagen and then pop the clutch to get it to start.
oh yeah. Oh,
That's-
okay.
Now, here on my screen, I have a line that says, Pro Football Hall of Fame, the man name to be taken off Commander jerseys, and I don't know how to remove that on my screen.
Is
So
it,
yeah, who are
is it like your
know
background?
technology, huh?
Is
And the
it-
screen is right there.
Yeah, but it's kind of your you know, your background to your screen.
No, it's right in front of the screen, and I don't know how to remove that thing. I didn't.
And
Put
what
it
does
in.
it say?
There's a Pro Football Hall of Fame demand name be taken off Commanders jerseys.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like on a web page?
So, but I'm gonna leave it there. I don't want to mess with the thing. So,
Clean your cookies.
oh,
You're
clean
good.
my cookies. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's
I'm
what he's
gonna
growing.
eat them.
That's what he's growing a mustache for. Clean his cookies.
Oh,
Now, Charles, I don't have your link. I using Sabrina's link.
Uh-huh.
It's more complicated, but I get it. But, your link, I don't have it because my old email address died.
Right. And I sent you an email. I responded to you, and I basically said I will send you the links. Okay. And I did that Friday afternoon.
No,
And I will.
didn't get it.
Yeah.
I
But
didn't get
anyway,
it.
yeah. But I'm aware of it, Armando, and I will send you the links to the classes again at your new email address. Okay. So that you'll have them. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we see.
good morning,
Mark-
Claudia.
see Claudia. Wow, we're seeing some faces that we haven't seen in a bit. Okay, so just let me give you kind of a
I was
heads
on a
up.
Black History tour.
Oh, there's Miss Claudia.
Yeah, I was on a Black History Month vacation.
Oh, so you have been
Oh, okay.
busy in party and concert and dinners and all that stuff.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to take over the meeting now, and so we're going to check out a couple of things.
Oh, that's Miss Eloise.
Yeah, and yeah, she's
I'm
on.
having computer issues. I gotta see my device
We all
on.
do.
Well, we are going to we're going to talk about watercolor today as a medium. Okay, and the reason I'm talking about watercolor is I've been doing a little bit of it in the last, really just the last 4 or 5 days. I went out and did a little plein air painting on Saturday because I drove over to my house in Valley, just to check in on it. And so I had a really nice day sitting out by the river, and I did a few plein air paintings out there. But then last night, I went to a figure drawing or painting group and, did a painting of a model. And so I want to play a couple of videos. It's a couple of different artists. Only one of these are fairly long. It's about 30 minutes. Okay. So it's not too bad, but it's all about watercolor. And the thing is, as you're watching the videos, I want you to notice the differences, between these artists and how they approach, painting a particular subject, right? So some people will draw it out and then paint it. Some people will, just go right in and start laying in big blocks of color, right? And so, there's different ways that you can go about, using watercolor. Now, as I said, I basically, these 3 videos are really all about painting the figure. But you can take this and you can apply it to any subject. It doesn't matter what the subject is, whether it's landscape, still life, figures, portraits, makes no difference. And if you're using, let's say that you're not using watercolor, let's say that you're using a water media, such as acrylic, right? Well, you could take this very same approach using acrylic. The difference is you're going to use the acrylic watered down, so that it's very thin and very much so like watercolor. And you can build, basically go through the same process, starting with light washes, building to your darks, okay? The advantage of using acrylic rather than watercolor is that in the case that you want to clean up some areas, you can always go back in and keep the acrylic opaque and go back in and, correct, different areas of the painting. Or if you want to create more contrast, say in the lights, again, you can switch over and stop using, transparent, translucent washes and go to an opaque with the acrylic. You can't do that with just regular watercolor, because watercolor is, unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately, it's just a nature of the media itself. It's going to be transparent, regardless of pretty much so anything you do to it, all right? So we're gonna jump in, okay? And there's 14 of us here, wow. Let's see who all is here.
13.
13?
I'm on 2. I've got sound and video problem.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you and Naomi, so we're really at 12. Okay, if you want to get technical about it, I guess. All right. Anyway, all right, so let's jump in and let's take a look at these, okay? And then I'll talk a little more about what I've been pushing around for the last couple of days. Now we're going to start off with a, okay. We're going to start off with the fairly long one, and then we'll work our way into the shorter ones, okay? But this guy, has a pretty good approach. Okay, let's see. Evidently, I hit the wrong thing. There we go. All right. And, just take some notes. And his name is Robert Dvorak, in case you want to know.
Hi, I'm Robert Regis Dvorak, and today I'm going to demonstrate how I draw and paint the human figure. It's been a challenge of mine all through my life, and I do it almost every week. And what I do is I always start out with pencil. Now today, I'm going to use this pencil, which is a 2B pencil, but usually I will use an HB pencil, just a regular yellow HB lead pencil, number 2, that you get from any office storeroom.
Okay, let me explain a little bit about that. Now, in drawing, we talk about what pencil do I use to draw with, right? And most of the time I'm recommending that you're using like a B series pencil. 2B, 6B, 9B is like the softest, right? The alternative to that is using something, like these ebony pencils, right? Any of those are basically in the B series. They're very soft and they get dark really quickly, okay? Now, in watercolor, for the most part, you don't want like a dark pencil line, what you want to start off with is something that's a kind of a faint line. You can still see it, but it's not going to dominate the other media, right? And so an HB or any kind of H series pencil is going to give you like a lighter line, so you can kind of sketch in, where your subject is and get your composition established, and then you can add layers of color from there. So that's why he's doing that.
The reason I'm not going to use this one today is simply because we're filming and I want you to really be able to see the lines that I make. So I'm going to use a little bit darker lead, a little bit softer lead. I'm going to use a 2B pencil. This particular 2B pencil is one that I have, that I produce for my students. I enjoy it because it says on it 4 most important things to remember when you paint and draw, and that is to smile, to breathe, relax, and to stay in the moment. very, very important to stay in the moment when you're drawing. You have to be thinking about how the drawing is going to come out or how you want the drawing to come out. You have to think about be right concentrated in the here and now. Now, for my colors, I keep a very, very simple palette, and I will talk a little bit more about the colors that I use when we start to paint. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to show you some of the drawings that I have done in preparation for painting. I give you an idea of the kind of drawing we use before we paint and how detailed the drawings need to be to get a really good paint. The main thing is when we're drawing the figure that we try, yes, it's important to get the proportions, and that, of course, comes with experience and time and working on it and measuring with your eye. The main thing is that we use a continuous line. Now, you can see here how the line is a continuous line. And that continuous line really helps you to keep only one line for each edge that you're drawing. And of course, not just drawing the outlines, but drawing the inner contours as well. It's very important. And I always like to have fairly good face in the drawing, because if you don't have a nice looking face, then the rest of the drawing always feels bad to you. So I like to feel good about what I'm doing. And so I always try to put a little extra time in on making the face come out really, really, really well. It's a very simple way. You can see how a lot of these lines are just continuous lines, and I go over things, and I work pretty fast. Now, it's also very important that the details are drawn. Various details that you see, like fingers and toes, are very, very important. And then, of course, I like to also have the model usually connected to it, at least two sides of the sheet. So you see how it's connected here and it's here. There's another drawing which is less complete, but it's a different model, and I thought that you might enjoy seeing some drawings of different models and what they look like. And you'll see, particularly I wanted to show you on this drawing, is how the model is sitting on a chair now. The chair is just suggested here. When you have a session, your model session, you only have a certain amount of time. You can't spend time working on background and other things. You have to put your attention on the model. This drawing was probably done in less than 10 minutes. It's probably an 8-minute drawing. And you see that the drawing here, you see it's not really a complete, no legs on the chair. If you do see the model actually sitting, there probably should be a shadow here also underneath the foot here. You probably want to do that as well. This one was done, I think, with the number 2 pencil. But notice how the fingers and the feet are all very, very carefully delineated. I particularly like this one because I like the model's postures, really pushing her body in a crazy way, a very nice back, and it's a very, very expressive pose. Now this one was done really quickly. This one was done very, very quickly, and you can see how the lines are just very, very spontaneous. This is probably a 5-minute drawing, and quite fast. Even when you're working fast like this, you need to take the time to draw each toe and each finger. Very, very important. You can see the face is just suggested here. Very interesting kind of foreshortened pose. There's another one. This particular drawing, I think, took probably at least 10 to 12 minutes. I tried to work on it and see how the shadow actually intersects the edge of the sheet here. And then the face was really worked on so that got the facial expression pretty well on this one. Another thing to notice about this one is that I've already delineated the shadows with the pencil. See these lines here, these are the shadow lines. So when I paint this, those are the lines that I would use to guide my shadow. There's another one, which is the same, actually the same model as in the last one. I wanted to talk a little bit about erasing now. Sometimes it's necessary to erase because you can't get the lines perfect every single time. Now what I do is I keep my eraser in this film can here. These keep my kneaded erasers clean. That's a really good suggestion for you if you're going to be using a kneaded eraser. And this is definitely the kind of eraser you want to use when you're working with watercolor situation. A hard eraser on a pencil like that or like this is going to damage the paper slightly. So you want to use a nice soft kneaded eraser. So anyway, you use this eraser to kind of clean up the drawing where you have maybe more than one line and the thickness there. Because you really only want to have one line for every single contour that you see. So you'll use the eraser to put in there and take off anything that's sometimes you can use the eraser to lighten lines as well. Eraser too. Again, this is a little bit larger, and you see how we're able to make this larger because she has her legs folded behind her, and so we've connected the drawing here and there as well. Very, very simple pose, and now this is one of our favorite models. She's an excellent model, and this drawing probably was more of a 15-minute drawing, I think, because I have a lot of detail in here. I have hand, both feet here, and a very, very expressive face. This is a Korean woman, and she's an excellent model. She actually held this pose for 20 minutes, which is pretty amazing. You can see again the shadows are indicated on here, and shows how the shadows are. So let's see the shadow of her arm underneath there, how that's drawn in. And some ribs are indicated there. Every single finger in the hand is drawn. Very important to get very good drawing. This is going to be the next one. Same model. This was a 20-minute. No, this was a 15-minute pose. But this drawing took longer because I had to draw this chair in here, and I took time to actually draw that chair while she was modeling. And you see, there's quite a lot of drawing that had to occur in that chair there as well. But you see how all the lines are very clean and very simple. All the fingers again, the toes, and every line. And you try to only make the lines one time if you can. Of course, if you don't make the right line the first time, you have to redraw the line. You can do that when you erase the first line. But I always recommend that if you're going to redraw a line, you redraw it while the mistake line is still there, so that then you can guide your pencil to do the correct line the way you want it, and then take the mistake line off afterwards. So that's that one. We have one more drawing here. This is another drawing ready to paint of a model. This was done with this pencil. You can see how it's a bit softer. Again, fingers and toes, fingers, all the fingers are there. And then this chair, of course, took some little bit of drawing too. So this was a 15 to 20 minute drawing to this model like that. This is a painting in progress that I had worked on some weeks ago. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the colors that I use here. I have my palette divided up into a very, very simple palette. I'll tell you what the colors I have here are. That's the Alizarin Crimson. That's vermilion. It's not cadmium, it's vermilion. I don't use cadmium to paint the figure. I use vermilion for my orange because it's a bit less pigmented than the cadmium. I try to stay away from the cadmium. They're pretty heavy, and I want watercolor to be nice and transparent. This is Rulin yellow, and I have here the yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is basic yellow ochre, and my vermilion and my Alizarin Crimson are my basic Caucasian skin color. Then for the shadow areas, I use cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and sometimes I use Prussian blue. Usually these are the two blues I use. I use cobalt blue far more than any other blue. Cobalt blue is my real staple for or shadow areas. Then I also have indigo here, which I use rarely. I use the same palette for doing my landscape with as well. And then Viridian Green, and there's the sienna. Over here I have some auxiliary colors. I have, again, burnt sienna. I have some umber here, and then raw sienna. And I have lemon yellow here, and I have a cobalt violet. This one here is Sherman Rose. So, but I don't use these colors very much. These are the ones that I really concentrate on. And mainly I use the cobalt blue, vermilion, and the ochre and the burnt sienna. Now, this particular painting here was, what I'm doing here is I'm putting in all of the gray tones, the shadow areas, the shade and the shadow areas. And I'm putting it in with a combination of cobalt blue and burnt sienna. I thought I would do is just do a little bit of painting here, show you how kind of the way this stuff in here. Let's see. Here. So, there's that. I might lay the brush down and put it on the paper like that. I don't do a lot of painting with the point of the brush, just use the point only when I need to get it see the detail. Now, when we have a puddle like this, what I do is I dry the brush on the rag by pulling the brush on the rag like this and then turning it at the same time. Pull and I turn, pointing my brush there, and it makes my brush thirsty, so I can do it here, I can remove that color.
I'm going to stop this just for a second.
When we're working on it,
Okay. And I'm going to switch my internet over to this county hotspot that I have. And let's see if I can find it. Okay, which one? Yeah, NKNZ is the one I'm looking for. Okay. Here you go. Charter. Yeah, okay. There we go. I found it.
sheet is so
Okay,
vertical like this.
are you? Anybody?
I'm here.
Okay. All right, you guys are back. Okay. Yeah, so I switched the Wi-Fi over. So let's try it now. This should be maybe a little more stable. Okay.
It's really, really important that we watch our trips. So let's go more here. Let's here. Soften that line and water. Right along the edge here. go on the back side of each of these toes now. Probably we want to have a little bit of shadow on the ground here.
Gilberto Villalpando.
Again, pulling the brush on the rag, pulling the brush on the rag like so. Okay, so I gives you a little sense of how that works. Here. Do that nice and strong there, so that.
Enrique.
Okay, I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to get something else for you, and I'll be right back. So here we are with Bridget, an excellent model, and I'm going to start looking at the paper and how I want the figure to go onto the paper. Now, this is a very, very important step in the process because this is where we actually visualize how the figure is going to be located on the paper. So what I do is I take my pencil and in the air, I kind of figure out where I'm going to put everything. The hands, there's the face, this is the waist, and the lower body is over here, and this foot. I'm going to try to get the whole thing on the paper here. Then once I've figured out how I want it to be located on the paper, then I go to the head. And I start working with the eyes. That's the very first thing I do. I start looking with the eyes. The eyes are a very, very important part of this drawing. You see how I'm just letting the pencil work the contours that I'm seeing on the paper. Nose is there, and I come up with this other eyebrow over here, and that eye, which is a little bit different shape than the other one. Nostrils. Looking for the details, always looking for every single detail that we can see. Oops. See how I don't lift up the pencil, I just keep the pencil right on the paper as I go through these contours. Come down and do the chin here. Come up and do the side of the face. See his hair. Now the hair is very, very a lot of lines in the hair, but I think I'm going to wait and paint those, so I'm not going to draw every line that I see. So let's just go down here to the hand. This is located right about here, the wrist, and then start drawing that hand in. Fingernail on the thumb. Drawing that finger there like that. The knuckle. Finger. Notice I haven't lifted the pencil yet. Zooming out. And the last finger again. Let's draw the other hand. Like that. On the knuckles. The way it's laying on the platform. Let's come up and draw that line there where the edges of the cloth there. line connecting with the edge of the sheet. Now that was all done with one line. And I'm going to go back up here and finish the upper part of the face here. Here I come down with this shoulder. You can see how that shoulder relates to what I've already drawn. Now I think about like so. In here, and that's going to right down there and connect up with that line that I drew before. Okay, lift up the pen again, pencil again, and I'm going to go up here now. Draw some more of this, just add some more of this, just create some of these contours that I'm seeing in the head here. Everyone, as I'm drawing, I'm imagining the pencil point is actually touching those details that I'm observing. Again, the pencil actually touching. So I tell my students to actually say to themselves, touching, touching, touching. There's the back. Put back up here and draw that other side of the shoulder there. So just a little bit of ear sticking out. Let's put that in. Draw this. So, let's see how we're doing now. Let's check this out. Let's go back up here and work on this arm. This may come out. Let's get this. This chin. This hair. Like this. Take some of that. And let's go to the other side of this arm. Bring that down. And bring it down right down to where I think it's going to hit the cloth, and then show the cloth where the cloth is. A little bit on the big side. I'm going to cut that down the sides just a little bit. A bit smaller. There's where I made a correction. You see, I take the eraser and I'm going to go back in here and remove some of that. Move that other line there. I felt the head was just a little bit big for what we want to do. Okay, let's come down here. Finish this here. See if we can get that out right. Put this here. All right, now let's go in here and do the foot. Like the other foot may actually end up being off the paper. We made that a little bit too long. Let me see, let me check that. See, this is what you have to do. You have to make sure you get it right the first time. I think we made this a little bit too long here. I think we need to make a good correction here and bring this up here like that. So I'm going to do that now before I go any further, because otherwise I'll be just wasting time here. Take all that out. We'll need an eraser. You need it, that's for sure. Okay, now that looks a little bit better for me. Okay. This one's going to be here. Okay, that's good. Okay, now let's go down here and start putting in this foot here. Very important. That's going to be a very important part of this drawing because it Actually, you have the detail of the face here and then the detail of the teeth here. It would be nice to connect the face of the hands with those details are so important. When you're drawing the figure, you want to make sure that you spend the time to record all of the details that you see. So there's every toe in here now, there's a toe there, and here like that. Big toe too. Just a little bit more. Looks like the other foot's going to go right off the page, so sometimes that's what happens. You just have to live with it. I wanted to get them both on, but I didn't get them both on, so I'm going back at this point. Back in there like that. Okay, it looks pretty good. I think this leg needs to be a little bit up here, more like that. There we go. Correction there. Now let's look at where the shadows occur, and the shading occurs. I got a nice shadow going down like that. I have some shadows under the fingers here. That'll be easy. Yeah, this here. Painting here, and we're going to use just paint in, just going to paint in the gray tones. Not the green color, just the gray tones. So we're going to use the eye here, white of the eye, white. The eye over here. Always think over painting just a little bit darker than what you think it needs to be. Look in there and the side of the nose here. Detail work in the mouth. Lower lip, shadow lip. On the shoulder here, down like that. Okay, now let's soften that line a bit there. Soften that. There we go. Well, that's some light tones here. Like that. The lip there. Shadow the hair. This hair is very dark. You put that in pretty strong color right in here. Pretty strong gray color right in here. Some strong, that hand, right around the hand here, so the hand shows. Strands of the hair coming down. onto the hand here. This will help to find the edge of her face here. Just use the side of the brush. Simplify this a little bit. Separate a little bit. Steady my hand on the paper as I'm doing that slide. Now you want to, when you're painting, you want to always try never to have to go back over the thing, especially when it's processing lines. Until we get let's finish up to here. Here you can see how the paint is separating there with the blue and the brown. I'm using the burnt sienna and the cobalt blue. Some lights.
You can see the water running.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on?
That's the whole idea, Armando. It's watercolor. It's supposed to run.
But it's not better to work it on a flat surface.
Gosh.
Well, we're going to look at 3 different artists today, and just that's one of the things I want you to notice. So,
Okay.
Give me a sense of this.
and it does affect
Now let's go back in here and add just
the
a little
outcome
bit
of your
dark
work.
to this. Make this up here, maybe. Put this up here. Stranded here.
Now he's working monotone. You know, he's not mixing a lot of color. You know, so basically, he's just laying in values. Now, if he were laying in actual color, and you'll see 2 different artists do this, he'd have to take a very different approach to it.
Soften that line. Good. That's good enough. Now let's go ahead and just work here like that. It's okay to have your lines actually hold the form. So you don't have to paint in everything. We're going to use a lot of white in this. Now that I've got the head and the face fairly sweet, I can go ahead and finish up the rest of the painting. It's more of a drawing than it is a painting. Down here. And then you're just going to go ahead and connect this right up here with the arm to shadowing here. Fast. Side of the sheet. There's have to have only a 20-minute pose, so we're trying to get this all done and finished in a time period. Not a whole lot of time left, I don't think. Let's do that arm. Darker there. Soften this up. So let's go down and do some feet here.
In
Some
B,
starts,
I done E, O,
toes,
E, N,
and the shadow on the right.
R, I. Q, U, E.
5 feet. Definitely darker in here.
That.
Shadow it. Soften all that. Shadow. Softening there. Going on the nose here. Let's make this like a little bit darker here so that we have to show the nose here. And some darkness on the cloth as well. We'll take all those panels off with some of them. Dark. Mix up with the cloth. Okay, let me have some patches here. So, and it's dark here. Light against dark. Always think light against dark. Soften the line there like that. And then let's put in some of the large areas of darkness here. Tone. So, there's the bell, so I just almost have to finish up here real quickly. That's pretty much it. I think I better stop. I could add some of the cloth lines here, the shadows on the cloth here, but pretty much that's it. So that was a 20-minute adventure.
There you go. All right.
Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor, and welcome back to another quickie video.
Okay, Eric, let's not go to a quickie video, okay? All right. Not quite yet. Okay. At any rate. Okay, so anybody any comments about that? Anything you noticed that he was doing that you liked, you didn't like?
Well, I got here late, but I saw him holding the pencil like a regular writing pencil, using the point tip of the pencil, and just doing an outline. All the things we talk about not doing.
Yeah. He does a lot of things that I don't necessarily, buy into. And that's one of them. And he also tends to be one of those people who do, what they call contour line drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're looking at the shape and you're just kind of following, the outline, but you're trying to connect everything together by not lifting your pencil. It's all like one.
That's right.
Yeah. Which, I've seen people do, and if you're working, in watercolor and you're putting it down as like a very light sketch just to try to get, your shapes and proportions and things in there. Okay. I haven't seen too many people do it very effectively as a quote unquote finished drawing. They always, those drawings always look a little bit like Picasso's, because that's what he did. Well, because that's the approach he took, as he was doing contours. Because if you think about Picasso's work, you don't see a lot of shading, and line variation in it. It's all kind of a continuous, it's what I commonly refer to as a coat hanger. It's like you took a wire and you bent it around, right? And so that's...
Well, I came in late also, but I liked his pencil drawing better before he started using his gray tones to shadow it. But if he would have taken the time of not to shadow it with the wash and taken the pencil and done just the side of the pencil to shadow, I think it would have looked a lot better to me.
I'm agree with you.
Yeah, he could have developed that drawing into a
Yes.
more tonal drawing.
Right. I
But
would've-
yeah, but since he, you know, he was going to
Oh,
do watercolor and he was doing it monochromatically,
right.
you know, he didn't really need to do that. And you're going to get softer transitions with watercolor than you would with building it up with pencil. So, you know, but you know, I mean, you could go either way with that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Now, somebody mentioned that he was working vertically, right? You know, the board was setting up,
Right.
and
Right.
the fact that, you know, that accounted for why a lot of his medium
Ran.
was moving, you know, well, if it didn't totally drip and run, it ran down to the bottom, you know, of the
Right.
shape that he was creating and puddled. And then he had to lift, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, when I'm working with watercolor, I personally don't recommend that you work on a vertical board, you know, because of that, unless that's an
Right.
effect that you really want. Okay. There are times, you know, let's say that you lay in a wet area and then you drop color into an area and you want it to run, or you want it, you know, you want some kind of color transition in there. You can prop your, you know, watercolor block or board up, you know, let it flow the direction you want, and then lay it back down, you know. And then if you want to come back in with a dry brush and pick up that bottom edge, you can, so that it doesn't really form a dark line down there. But most of the time when I do that, I don't bother to lift the paint at the bottom because I want that darker to lighter transition in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. So, but that's just me. Anyhow, wow. Okay, so there's wow. Okay, we got like 13 of us here. Okay, is the video more stable now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, yeah. I'm using the county's Wi-Fi today. You know, I went down and got the little hotspot. So, and that's good. It's nice to know that that's working better. And all right, so we're gonna jump into looking at the next video. Let me close him out. And again, this is a little bit different approach, okay? And so, again, I'm trying to give you guys same subject matter, you know, give you some variety in how different people are going about this. Now, this is not a very long video. I think it's like 8 minutes. And it's kind of a, I would say it's kind of a time lapse sort of thing. That's not the one. This is, yay, okay. And again, it's kind of a similar approach. Now, the thing you'll notice here is that he's working flat. He's not working with a raised surface. So you're looking down on the drawing board, okay? Let me back it all the way up.
Did he start off in pencil drawing also?
Yeah.
Or did he? Okay.
Yeah, so he already had a pencil
Drawing.
laid in. And you'll also notice that, you know, he didn't use a light, you know, like a hard pencil. You know, he used a very soft pencil. And this is probably like an ebony or something. And as you can see, you know, he also sort of hatched in some lights and darks. And I don't really know in particular whether he was using just a regular graphite pencil or in fact whether he was using what they call water soluble
Pencil.
graphite. But my guess is that it's the latter, the water soluble graphite. Okay.
I don't like the dark part. I don't know. It doesn't
like-
look right to me.
Well, okay, just let him do his thing and watch what happens to it.
Mhm.
So you see as he's going over those pencil areas, how that's beginning to kind of dissolve and melt. That's why I think it's water soluble graphite.
Right.
Oh,
Okay. So that was kind of quick, but okay.
Hi, I'm Robert Regis.
Yeah, we've been there already. Okay. So any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I wish I could have seen the model because it looks like he really emphasized the shadows very dramatically on her. And I would have liked to see what he saw in doing that particular drawing. But it would have been helpful to see where he were overshot and the undershot kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, in certain parts of that figure, he had some really nice modeling going on. And then he went back in, and then I think he was a little heavy-handed with the shadows and really, you know, like pushed it, you know, like a little bit too far.
The legs became the center of interest instead of the top part of the figure because he got heavy-handed down there at the bottom. I think with the shadows down there would have been better. Before he put the darkness on the head, that was really lovely.
Yeah, I kind of wish that, well, I was waiting, you know, when I was watching that, I was waiting for him to go back into the shadows and maybe lift out, you know, a little of the dark. And he never did. You know, he just went back in and punched it in even harder. And it was kind of like, all right, you had a lot of really nice stuff going on there, and then you just
killed it.
Yeah. But hey, you know, again, you know, this is, you know, you're just watching people work, right? And so, you know, if you were doing it, you may have done 100 different things, right? And he did, you know, or she. Yeah, I think this was a he. All right, so we're gonna watch the last video, and then we're gonna get into, you know, like a longer conversation. Okay, so we're up to like 16 people. Wow. Okay. Yeah,
You're in demand today.
I guess, yeah. Jeez.
Good programs on Mondays.
Well, you know, we try to keep it interesting, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Have a little, you know, kind of a little bit of a discussion here about, you know, what we're looking at.
Well, I miss a lot of the days. I can't help it, but I sure would like to be here every day.
Yeah. All right. I want to show you. Okay, good. Let's back this up just a little bit. Now, this guy is Chinese, I believe. Okay, so he speaks with a little bit of an accent, but just listen carefully. You know, he's got a lot of pretty good, useful stuff to say.
In this video, I want to share with you how I do figure paintings with watercolor. In the first hour of the evening, I already finished one version of the painting. I'm not too happy with the composition yet. So for the next 15 minutes, I want to try a different composition. First, I want to mix with light yellow-brown color. I already have the crescent bull and the Windsor red, and now I mix with yellow color that is like a golden tone. Okay, so first I want to do is I want to mark down where the location of the head. The brush I'm using is number 10 round brush. Is a sable here.
Don't buy another flashlight until
Now
you
what?
watch this short demonstration video.
Do we have
This
to?
unique white beam headlamp is the only.
YouTube
If I
enhance.
wanted to make it a little lighter, I can just use the water and make the color lighter. I have 2 water bottles and hanging at the front of their supporting board. And make this very compact, portable painting station the night before this painting event. Now I coming into mark down with the nose and with the mouth, from the nose to the chin. And I'm not ready to go into any details yet. I just want to get the most prominent, the biggest shape first. Now I use my 1-inch flat brush. I'm going to start wash into the background area to cover, to create a big shape. Because this is a live painting event, there are about 20 other artists in the same room. And also the model doesn't, usually the live model doesn't like to be photo taken. It being my photo reference. For this, I won't be able to show the photo reference because there's no photo reference. So now I mix with various colors to create a soft background area. When you work in the background, if you want the background look soft, you can use, there's 2 things you can make the background soft. Use a little bit more water. Second thing, use a bigger brush. Let the water do some work for you. Now I'm going into the arm. They're close to me. Her arm is, because the spotlight mostly at the front and on the chest area and the face area. So the arm that close to me appear to be darker. This is the stage that only focus on the big areas. Like you see the whole background and the body is the light color and the arm a 1 color form. Now I want to change back to the number 10 round brush to mark some smaller shapes at the front. And for this version of the painting, I want to make it simple. Make it simple, a little bit cleaner. So now I'm looking for the shapes. And if I need to be lighter, I just use a little bit more water. Now add a little bit red color into it. So with this little red colors, this is what I see for the other arm that is right on top of the tummy. And you can see that there is some pretty wet color waiting for the opportunity to drip down. And this is why I don't want to touch my brush into those wet area. So now I use the water, just do a little blending. I'm blending into, because at the top over there, the color very much close to dry. For some areas supposed to be lighter or softer, first I use the water to remove the color or soften the edge before I apply new color into the space. Now I also put a little dark color at the back. First I just use this round brush to draw some lines. Now I want to make the line a little bit bolder. And in the painting process like this, first you know how much time you have. Second thing is you need to know which areas are already dry, they're ready for you for the next step, and what area you probably have to wait. So now I mix a new color and start working into the shape for the eye. At this point, I'm not ready to actually paint any details in the eye. I just want to look for the shapes for the whole area. Now also working into the corner of the nose, and should give a little suggestion the corner of the mouth. And now I make the corner of that shape a little bit softer. And different medium would slightly some process a little bit different. For example, watercolor, if you want to get a soft transitions quicker, and you probably want to do a little softening when it's still wet. Now I just added some red color into the side of the face because the cheek area has some warmer feeling. I also put a little red color into the ear area. Just keep it simple, and you don't want to. And whatever everything that I put it down right now, especially on the arm, on the body, that's only the base color. I'm going to develop a little more at the next step. And I'm just putting a little bit color suggestions for the mouth. And the time is already running out for this painting section. And I need to go a little bit faster. Now I put a little darker color to define the edge at the shadow side of the arm. It's very big, very dark. Now also putting the back of the hair. I want to use the simplest way to describe. This is my second painting this evening from the same post, the same model. And I want to create the illusion. I create the feeling that the hair in the back. I want to give it a little darker definitions of right under this shape, under it. And also give a little catch the shadow, feeling on the shadow side of their fingers. And lots of those middle tone I'm not ready to get into. So I want to capture the most important elements to describe my observation.
Switch this salad like you did before bed.
More YouTube ads.
Scientists.
Now I give it a little indications of the toning of those fingers and the arm. And also the paint now is getting drier and drier now. So soon enough, I'm going to be ready to get into some area that I was not ready to. Give a little bit more indications for the hand. Now I'm going to come back to do another color so that it blends into the dark color that I just set there. For most of the people, they may believe it's risky to do figure painting, very complicated subject matter. Get a little warm color. Just thinking about what you can do with the limited brush strokes, with the limited colors, the limited details for the maximum expression. Figure painting and drawings are just fun. For our enjoying out members, if you're a beginning figure artist, the first thing you need to work on is to understand the human anatomy. We have a site to help you to go through the exercise. We have a whole semester long of the materials for you to practice. Now I'm going to look into inside the eye to give a little indication for the detail. And this time I'm using a smaller round brush. It's a sable brush. It's very soft and small. And basically for the brushes, I only use about 3 or 4 brushes. One is the 1-inch bigger flat brush. And the second one would be the number 12 round brush, sable, and or even add the number 10 round sable. Now I add the red color into the face. At this point, I mostly can just use the primary colors to overlay on top of whatever the color they already have on the paper. When we're doing paintings and drawings, all we can do is looking for shapes, the light shape and the dark shape, and the shape around the white area. Now I try to correct the shape for the ear. So I create a little bit more contrast around the ear. We saying that a lot, that sometimes when you make the shapes for one area, you don't have to work inside the area. You can work outside of the area at the same time. You're making the form for inside the shape. So it's just give a little indication to do a little bit more. At this point, let's just get a little bit more indication into it, give a little bit convincing details, but it's keep it really simple. Now I look at the back, the space on the back is too light, create too much contrast from the dark hair, so I just wash that, make it a little darker. So I continue use the light brown color, now working into different the value to the shadow side of the mix a little brown colors and even make it the arm a little bit darker. Now the arm is very much in the correct value compared to the body and the face. And now the shoulder here see much warmer color. So I just put the red color there. And lots of time we see warm, I just immediately thinking about just get the primary color and put it on. Now I want to work into the back. There's a pillow in the back of the model. I just use whenever there is a bigger area and also secondary objects, I use a bigger brush. That's very useful to make it look softer, easier to organize, and less important. It's important in the sense that it doesn't really require that much details. So mainly it's just make it softer. Yeah. Now figure painting with watercolor is really fun thing to do. It's lots of challenge. And in the process, it just actually go faster than the graphite pencil, even charcoal pencil. You can see how expressive that one brush of paint that actually equals to how many times that you draw with graphite pencil. That is much faster expression. Just get the fear out of your head and just try it. It's easy. I want to continue giving some details to the hero. The form is turning over and create enough suggestion that is so the viewer can see that what is it behind it. Now I get a little deeper color behind the back of the head. and that it create the roundness and all the shape. Now the top of the hair need a little bit warmer color. Let's just get the red color on top of this color. It will look like similar to the brown color. And there you go. It's the power with the suggestions of the overlay wash. Now this simple watercolor figure painting is finished. And that's all the time I have.
Okay.
Now it's already 10 o'clock at night. Away you go.
Okay, so I want to just
Now,
stop
figure
it.
painting with watercolor is really fun thing to do.
Okay, yes. I just want to kind of stop it there. Okay. Anybody got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, he emphasized value and temperature big time. On it. I mean, that's what he built this on.
Right.
Those two concepts.
Well, and there's another one, which is looking for light and dark shapes.
Well, that's, yes.
Yeah. And notice that he did not draw
What I was going to ask you.
anything.
Yes.
See, there were no pencil lines down there.
Right.
He actually used the color, or the paint itself to block in what we call positive and negative shapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
By using, at first, he kind of started off with the head and kind of the hair, and, kind of the darker value for the hair, things like that. And just, got an established form, or shape, for where the head was going to be, because that was his focal point. And then from there, he used a broad brush just to basically indicate where the rest of the figure, really the front line of the figure, was going to be by just, kind of following the contour and outlining it, leaving all the flesh tones, white, for the moment, and letting the color be in the background. So, now that's a little more the approach that I take with watercolor, because I don't draw. I use the watercolor itself. If I need to find a shape, I'll try to find it actually within the paint, or within the color itself. And particularly with figure, but also with landscape. And, in particular with landscape, I've seen people take the approach of, they'll paint in their sky first, and then they'll try to put things in on top of it and stuff. And with watercolor, that just doesn't work very well. It's a good way to start getting a lot of muddy color that way. So, going with this approach and kind of looking for light and darks, and just, you're not starting with real strong dark color. You're starting with, kind of lighter to mid-tones, and laying in shapes, and finding those forms and shapes there. And then going back in and working with color, and trying to make it a little more interesting. And yeah.
I'm not a watercolorist, but in viewing his video, it has me rethinking it. I may try to do that because I like some of the techniques he used, especially in the spaces and reshaping things using contrast. And what is the name of the video? I want to look at it again.
Oh, what's the title to that video? Well, his name is Yong, Y-O-N-G, Chen, C-H-E-N. And it's figure study number 8, watercolor female figure painting from life. Okay. Yeah. And he's got, I think he's got, several videos out there, that you could watch.
Is that on YouTube?
Yes, on YouTube. Yeah. And, I would encourage any of you, go on YouTube. In this particular case, I just put, figure painting in watercolor. And, literally, 50 or 60 videos, so you can kind of watch them. And again, it's like the more people you watch do this, you know, the more ways you're going to see, you know, people approaching it. And they're very different. You know, not everybody, you know, goes at this the same way, even though they're doing, you know, a similar subject in the same medium. You know, there's always latitude, you know, for, you know, how you approach things. And, you know, when you look into this, you know, you might see ideas or things that you want to try out from one person or another, and, you know, experiment with it, see if it works for you. If it, sometimes, you know, things will click and it will work just the way you want it. You know, hold on to those. You know, the ones that you really struggle with, that, you know, you just can't seem to get the effect that you want, don't worry about it. You know, yeah, you don't have to do it, you know, any particular way, but you're going to pick up, you know, little pointers here and there, and you're going to use those, and that's what's going to sort of determine sort of the end result of your work, you know, and that will also, you know, make it individual for you, you know, and you know, you'll have kind of your particular signature using watercolor or acrylic or, you know, oil or whatever. So, you know, look at lots of different sources. You know, try to pick up, you know, pointers from as many people as you can. And, you know, always play, always kind of experiment, you know, push things. You know, you might mess up a few watercolors or something like that. That's okay. You know, you learned, you know, along the way. And sometimes it's important to, you know, destroy a piece of artwork, you know, in the process, because you're going to learn something along the way. You'll see how far you can push it, you know, or, you know, where you've got to hold back a little bit as well. So, you know,
that's what I like. I don't feel as bad scrapping a watercolor as I think I might scrapping an oil.
Yeah. Well, and the saving grace with an oil painting is
you can paint over.
Well, yeah, you can always paint over, but at the end of the day, you know, depending on your approach, if you have like a very direct alla prima approach, you know, if you don't like what you get at a certain point, you know, you take a palette knife and you scrape it all off, you know, and you start over again. You know, so, you know, there's really no great risk, you know, in painting. You know, you can make messes out of stuff, and, you know, worst case scenario, you know, you scrape it off and go at it again. You know, one of the beauties of acrylic, and I'm not pushing acrylic as the go-to medium for anybody, but there's nothing really wrong with it. You know, I mean, it's a great medium to work with, in the sense that it's that intermediary between watercolor and oil. You know, you can use it very much so like watercolor, and then, you know, you can also go back into it, you know, with opaque passages and very direct painting. So you can really get a wide range of effect in acrylic that you really can't get almost in any other medium. And, you know, it's very versatile. Plus the fact that, you know, it's generally non-toxic, it cleans up with water, and it dries really fast, you know, which can be the blessing of it, and it can also be the curse of it. You know? But the nice thing with acrylic is, again, if it dries too fast and it messes up an area, there's always this stuff called white acrylic paint, and you just paint that area out and you go back in and redo it, you know, and you can do it dozens of times, you know, and until you get it exactly the way you want it. So it's flexible. Okay.
One of the things that you talk about
in the watercolor, and I have not liked it, but I like the composition that I've started. I will go back with acrylics right up on top of it, and not have to tear it up.
Yeah. Well,
it makes it interesting to play with.
Yeah. Well, if you can put acrylic or gouache over the watercolor.
Right. That's it.
The only issue you have is that when you put the acrylic over it, you can't use it real wet.
Right.
You have to leave it a little bit drier so that it will sit on top of it. If you get the acrylic too wet, then it's going to pull that watercolor up through it.
Yeah, slides it.
And I've had that happen, you know, when I tried to do like little corrections with white acrylic and stuff, you know, where I put it down and it's white because I wanted to get the white back to the paper or something. And I come back to it 10 minutes later after it's dry and it's brown or pink or whatever because the watercolor, you know, leached up through it into the acrylic. Yeah. But if I just take the acrylic straight out of the tube and do that without adding any water to it, it'll sit on top of it and it won't suck it up. So, you know, you got to experiment a little bit. You know, you can always play with it. That being said, okay, it's 11:37. We're right on time. Yay. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I was doing this weekend. And specifically, you know, because these are all watercolors. Okay. Now this is a 12 by 16 watercolor block that I had. And I drove over to Valley to go check on my house and just, you know, see what was going on in the neighborhood and stuff. And I went there, everything was fine. So I went down the hill to the river, and this is actually kind of like the spillway gate to the hydroelectric dam that powered the mill, okay? And it's a Georgia power facility, but this is just the backwater of it, okay? And it's not. It's technically on the Alabama side of the river, okay? So it's in Valley.
Valley?
Valley, yes.
Oh.
Where my house is. This is actually the scene, okay? So that's what I was looking at. So you can see just a little bit of Langdale Mill right here. And then around this bend, there's a dam, you know, and Georgia Power had a big power plant. Now, interestingly enough, Georgia ends at the water line, you know, so all the dirt on this side is Alabama. The water and everything on the other side is Georgia. That's right.
Did you say Dallas County in Alabama?
No, I said Valley, V-A-L-L-E-Y, which is a city, a small little city in Alabama.
D-A?
L-L-E-Y.
L-L-E-Y.
Yeah. Now, you know, this is not the prettiest area to paint. You know, most of you, I don't know, you know, when you look at this, you go, why would you want to paint that?
But you can liven it up. It looks dead, but you can lift it up.
It looks calm to me. It looks like, you know, you want to wind down, you know.
Yeah, well, it's very quiet.
Yeah,
it's very quiet back there. Anyway, so this is the painting that I did of it. And, you know, I kind of zoomed in on it from where the camera was. But, you know, you get a sense of, okay, what was going on there. And so this was about maybe an hour and a half long painting, you know, that I did. And this is kind of where I got it, and I stopped because it was really too wet, you know, to keep going on it. And, you know, as you can kind of see, you know, I was just laying in sort of direct color. And, you know, I wasn't trying to get real fancy with stuff. I was just trying to get, you know, shapes and blocks of color and value in. And so, you know, that's the painting, you know, kind of when I stopped, you know, there in my chair.
Charles.
And, yes?
What road do you take to go there? I'm trying to
You
find
mean
it
the
on the
Valley?
map.
Yeah, 85.
85.
It's like, yeah, it's like on the way to Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh.
Yeah.
If I had known that, I would have stopped to see you because I was in Montgomery.
Oh, were you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was over there. Well, I went over on Saturday, which was a really nice day. It was a beautiful spring day. So anyway, I got that painting done. And then I decided to kind of tool on, down the road. And this is a little, it's a little park. And they have a boat ramp, where you can put your boat in. And there was a little dock out there. So I went out on the dock. And you can see my coffee cup and my water bucket. So I decided to do the view down the river. Now this is about 100 yards away. This is looking one direction down the river, the other is looking up toward, the power plant. And so it's much more open and in a way you would say, maybe more scenic. And so again, I took about maybe an hour and a half and, that's what I did, within an hour and a half. And again, it's that same block of watercolor paper. So I did a second painting on it. And I ran into this guy, who was in this kayak out there fishing, this is Jamie. And so I had a good conversation with Jamie. He's a local guy, does a lot of fishing around that area. But like I said, I stayed out there about an hour and a half, and
That's nice.
that's what I got done. So
I like that.
yeah, it's fine.
I really like.
When you did that, did you scrape the trees on the left-hand side with a palette
No.
knife, or did you use white?
No, I used white.
The white.
Yeah, I had a little bit of, well, what I had with me, I had one of those little Sakura watercolor boxes with about, I think it had like 16 colors in it. And it has like a China white in it, and I just used that.
Because I wondered if you used the palette knife to get to the paper while it was still wet.
No,
That was my curious question.
no, I don't,
Okay.
I don't really like scratching through watercolor paper. And particularly if it's wet, because that's a good way to start tearing it. If you go at it that way.
It was pretty good with the 300-pound paper.
Yeah, you can do it, but yeah, I would just rather hit it with a little bit of white, and let things sit up and dry a little bit, go back over it, done deal. And
I like your watercolor technique. It's a little looser than you do with your oils.
oh yeah. Well, again, this is about an hour and a half. That's all you got, and you're trying to get shape, big blocks of color and shape.
Right.
And then you got to kind of let it go. You can't keep messing with it. And I was happy with both of those.
Yeah, they're great. They're both great.
Yeah. They're not the best watercolors I've ever seen done, by anybody, but but to spend an afternoon sitting out, by the water and, get to talk to people coming by and just, it's a very nice kind of relaxed day, and you just kind of get away from all the stress and running around and craziness out there in the world. But, it was a nice way to spend the day. It was, worth the effort. And material wise, I didn't really have to take a lot with me. I had two like bags, like these cloth bags. One had my brushes and, some of the watercolor paint and a pad or two. And then the other one had like the water bucket and the bottle of water and stuff in it. And so it wasn't, it's not like anything was like really heavy, and I could basically pick everything up, and walk out to it, out to where I wanted to paint and set it up within a couple of minutes and have a chair and just be able to sit there and paint. No big deal. So, and watercolors are great for that, in the sense that you can go out, set up quickly, get something down, that looks halfway decent, and you don't have to make 20 trips back and forth to the car to get stuff, or carry a lot of like really heavy stuff with you. So, it's a good alternative, right? So yesterday, right, I went to my figure drawing group that I always go hang out with. And we had a model. And so she did some gesture poses, of which, we were doing like 3-minute poses. And then we did a 10-minute pose. Now, John?
Yes.
You'll be happy to know that I took one of your ideas, which was to take that gray Strathmore paper and try to do watercolor on it.
Okay.
And so basically I took like a real fine Chinese brush and, just did the outline sketch, came back into it with some white and then hit it with a couple of washes and then, had a little more time. So went into it with a colored pencil on top of it. And, that's within 10 minutes.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And had, felt like I had plenty of time, to work with it. And got a, pretty nice little sketch out of it. So, and the good news is the paper, which got a little bit wet, when I laid in that big background in there, really didn't buckle too bad. It's got a little bit of wave in it and stuff, but it's not like terrible.
Right.
How some paper really kind of buckles up on you and twists.
Yes.
Yeah, this stayed relatively flat, and so it didn't get too bad. And then from there, I went back to that same watercolor pad and, the, heavy watercolor block. And this was the long pose. And this was, 4 25-minute sittings. And so that's what I did from there. Again, all watercolor. And it was fun, it was fun to do. So, but, like I said, as a quick medium, something that you want to be able to grab and go real quickly, you could just, put all your watercolor stuff in a little bag and you're ready to go out the door anytime with it.
How can you keep that permanent, the watercolor painting?
Well, it pretty much so is permanent. If you were to frame it, watercolor and any kind of work on paper is always put under glass.
Okay.
Which
so you don't have to spray it?
No. In
You
fact,
wouldn't spray it. You would put it under glass.
Yeah. Watercolors you don't spray.
Okay.
Yeah, because
This
if
is
you
beautiful.
do, what you're
Yes.
going to get is you're going to get like a lot of little like dots or circles where it got wet and the watercolor spread.
So now you're getting into watercolor more?
No, I've used watercolor quite a bit, just to sketch with.
But it's not your favorite.
No.
What's your favorite?
I would say, I like probably oils more than anything else. If I'm gonna spend a significant amount of time, trying to work with an image,
A masterpiece.
yeah, then I'm gonna probably do it in oils because that's
Okay, I have
gonna
a
give me the
question
most
about-
flexibility. Yeah,
I have a question about the acrylic.
yeah.
If you have a canvas and you do watercolor first and then you water down the acrylic, what happens then? Is that not permanent? You're destroying the acrylic, right?
Well, okay, and I think I was talking to Gene earlier about this. If you're going to lay acrylic over watercolor, let's say you want to go back in and use the acrylic to touch up an area of your watercolor painting, you can't thin it down. You got to use the acrylic pretty much so straight out of the jar, because when you start putting a lot of water with it and you get it wet, what's going to happen is it will reactivate that watercolor, and that watercolor will leach up through it.
Okay, so let's say you're doing acrylic on paper and you water it down a lot. How is that going to last?
Oh, well, if it's on paper, it will be fine.
Okay, so that's how
Because-
to put it down. The acrylic is on paper, not on canvas, correct?
Yeah, well, the paper is more absorbent, right? So the acrylic is, if you're using it, see, when you're watering it down, then you're really using it more like watercolor.
Right, but what about if you water down the acrylic, put that light, airy watercolor look on canvas? What's going to happen? It won't last?
No, it'll probably hold up. The only problem that you have with acrylic is where if you put down a fairly solid block of color, and then let's say that you want to just put a glaze over it, right? And you really thin the acrylic down with water, you know, what you've done is you've kind of broken the ability for it, you know, to adhere to the surface, and you're putting it on top of a sealed surface. So sometimes when you do that and the acrylic's really thin, you put a wash over another color, sometimes it will flake off, you know, a little bit.
But what if you just want to do it, you want to do it light and airy, use a lot of water? Will
Yeah.
it flake off or what?
Well, if you're not putting it down over like heavy paint passages, it will probably hold up just fine.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, like I said, you know, you can actually use it a lot like watercolor. You know, now when I'm trying to get kind of a watercolor effect with acrylic, I generally don't work on canvas. I generally work on, you know, it's a Strathmore double weight watercolor board.
They have acrylic paint, though. They have acrylic paper, though. Multimedia paper.
Yeah, well, mixed media. Yeah.
Mixed media paper. So that I could water down the acrylic on that paper.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, the advantage of working on paper or some kind of like paper surface or board with like a real thin acrylic is that much like watercolor, you know, it actually absorbs into the paper surface itself. So that helps it stay a little more permanent.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get some beautiful effects, you know, working with like really wet acrylic. You know, just like.
Now, what's the advantage? What is the advantage to water down the acrylic versus to use the watercolor and make it opaque? What's the advantage?
Well, well, first of all, you can't make watercolor opaque. Not going to happen. Okay.
Well, with dark colors, it comes out pretty dark.
Yeah, but watercolor, yes, it will be very dark, but it's still translucent.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, using acrylic, you know, you can, by watering it down, you're going to make it very transparent, and you can put like color over color. The nice thing is, once you get a color down and you get an effect that you like, you let it dry, and then you go back over it with more wet acrylic, and you don't have to worry about it moving on you.
Okay.
You know, it's still there. With watercolor, if you did that, well, every time you put one wash over another color, you know, it's going to move that paint just a little bit. Okay? But with acrylic, it won't. The other nice thing about using acrylic as a watercolor medium is that at the end, you know, let's say that you get this really nice effect, you know, somewhere on the painting, you know, and there's areas of the painting you don't particularly like, you know, you could always take it and treat it kind of like a vignette and just take like some white gesso or white acrylic and, you know, paint out those other areas, you know, really kind of isolating, you know, the nice color areas and stuff that you want to keep. And again, you don't have to worry about the color bleeding through or anything else. So there's lots of different ways of, you know, of working with acrylic. And like I said, it's probably, out of all the mediums out there, you know, it's probably the one that is probably most versatile. You know, again, you can use it and give it kind of a watercolor look. You can also use it and have it look like oil. You can use it as a mixed media. You know, using, again, you don't really have to change the acrylic, but again, by using like some very wet, very loose techniques with some, you know, cleaner, sharper edges, you know, painted in opaquely. And, you know, it gets a very different look. You can also use it, you know, as a glue. You know, you stick paper down into those wet areas of acrylic and you've got a collage going on, you know, as well as embedding stuff, you know, like leaves or flowers or something like that. You can actually embed it into the acrylic paint itself. So, you know, there's not much you can't do with it, you know. Now, I'm not trying to sell you guys specifically on acrylic, but, you know, but it is a very versatile medium, and you can do lots and lots of stuff with it. So, you know. So if you don't have watercolor, and let's say you've got some acrylic paint at home, and you want to try to do things that look a lot like watercolor, you know, you just have to thin the paint and use it that way, and use it wet into wet. You know, you'll get a very similar look to it. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Anybody got any other questions about what we looked at today? No?
Well, when we were talking about the other artwork, in the last one, and he said that to have the most maximum effect, you need to have less strokes and less detail, and you can get the maximum benefit from that. Which every once in a while they do that in abstract when they do in oil. They will have a lot of less. But I don't know about far as that, but in oil it's all about the brush stroke stuff. So I don't know if that would apply as it with oil as it did with the watercolor. So, you know, I'm not a watercolor artist, but I admire watercolor, and some of the ones that you showed us in the past, some of them were very detailed, and it was really to be admired of how much detailed work they did with the watercolor paint. You know,
yeah. Well, you know, there's such a wide range of different ways that you can approach, you know, painting or drawing. You know, there are some people who draw very loosely and sort of abstractly. There's also people who do very tight, you know, almost photographic renderings. You know, there's no wrong or right. You know, you just have to kind of find your niche, you know, kind of your place as to, you know, the direction you want to go. You know, either you want to make things really tight, or you want to keep things very loose, or you may be, you know, somewhere in between. You know, it's all fair. You know, you can do any of those. You know, think about some of the painters that we've looked at, okay? And one that comes to mind who did both watercolor and oil that's very well known is this guy by the name of John Singer Sargent, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and Sargent did beautiful portraits, and you know, and the thing that I guess you could take away from his work in general is if you look at his oil paintings and you look at his watercolors, for the most part, he was doing an abstract painting. You know, everything was just a simplified shapes, colors, values, and it suggested that there was a dress, or that, you know, there was drapery or things like that going on. About the only thing, you know, that he rendered in any of his paintings were just around the focal point. You know, so if it was a portrait of somebody, you know, the face would be, you know, brought up to a level where it was fairly tight. And then the rest of the painting needed to be slightly looser and more suggestive, so it kind of reinforced the idea that the focal point was the face. If he went down here and he rendered the hands and things like that, they would pull your attention away from that. You know, so he was very conscientious about, you know, what he put in that was tight and what he left kind of as a suggestion. Okay. And we've talked about suggestions, you know, before, in the fact that it's like the more you render it, you know, and the more you cut off the conversation, you know, with the person looking at it, because you're sort of taking away from the experience of them, you know, bringing their own experience to the painting. Sometimes people will see things in paintings that you didn't intend, you know, and that's because, you know, the shapes and things kind of trigger something in their brain, and they see that thing, you know, within there. And, you know, that's a really valid way of working. You know, you keep the conversation open with people by suggesting that something was there rather than, you know, putting in all the little details.
And I think that's what I was sort of hinting at when I said I liked the two watercolors you did, because they were looser and not overly defined, that you say were. It's so specific that you can't use your own mind to take things out of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's something I'm still, you know, even at this stage of life, you know, I still struggle with, because sometimes I don't know when to stop.
That's true.
You know, and I'll keep, I just keep futzing with it. And it's like, you know, oh yeah, we'll get better if I, you know, figure this out. No, not necessarily. You know, sometimes it's like, put it down, walk away. You know,
that's how it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter where you are in life, you know, or in, you know, your process of learning how to draw or paint. There's always more to learn, you know, and if nothing else, you know, the process of learning how to do art will make you humble, you know, because you'll learn all that stuff you didn't know, you know, and you'll discover that there's a lot more to learn and that you'll never get around to knowing it. So anyway, anyway, that's all I got. Anybody got anybody got anything, you know, that we need to talk about before we go away?
No, but I do have to go away. I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
We're gonna talk about lunch.
Well, it is that time, so, you know, you need to get on your way up to Benson so you can get your lunch there, Armando.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Maybe I'll see you there, Armando.
Tomorrow, okay? Lucy
right.
will be there.
Hi.
Okay.
Thanks.
All
right. Well, we'll see you guys
Bye-bye,
tomorrow at
everybody.
about 2 o'clock, hopefully, okay?
Hopefully.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, Charles.
Bye, Azam.
Bye.